Welcome back to the Knit Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to work on this Essential Stripes knit blanket. This is a really quite a fabulous blanket. I have to say it's one of my favorites of the knit blankets so far in this series. So what we have here is that we have a total of 5 stripes that are working together. So they're like 5 panels that are sewed together, and so you have a really beautiful look. So you have, sometimes it's solid, sometimes it's striping. So in today's tutorial I'm just going to cover the basics on how to be able to do the stitch work, because it's just a garter stitch back and forth. I'll show you how to do the striping as well, because the striping is actually quite easy too. So what we're going to be working on today is that I'm going to show you the garter stitch, and it's just a knit stitch back and forth in the rows, and I'm going to show you how to change colors. And one side is going to look completely different when you do the striping. So this is the wrong side and this is the right side, so you can see how the striping stays together. That's just part of knitting on just how it works up. So what's going to happen is that you're going to do the stripes, but here's the thing, is that you don't have to fasten off or cast off every time that you're changing colors. You simply just carry it up into the next one. So the next time we use white, we just let it dangle and then we bring it up and do the white and then come back and then just do the purple. So we go back and forth instead of having to fasten off or cast off each and every time. So you'll notice that the pattern is quite extensive, and it's not because the instructions are that crazy, it's just because the stripes are different colors. So you got a strip, and one strip is a different combination, and then another one, and so on. And there's a total of 5 of them, and all of the instructions have all that information. You can kind of see it there here on the pattern as well. So you can follow the different designs in order to do it. So you just have to just look at it and just kind of read it, the instructions, in order to get all your striping. So without further ado, let me show you how to cast it on, and then I'll show you how to do the stitch, and then I'll show you how to do striping. So each one of the strips are a different size. So the first strip is 28 stitches to go on. Strip number 2 is 56. You just have to look at the particular pattern in order to get it to work out. Okay, so just look at that for the amount that you need to cast on. So what you're going to do is start off with the slip stitch, okay, and put it onto your knitting needle. And I'm naturally right-handed, but if you're looking at it from a left-hand video, you'll see it this completely opposite to each other. So let's cast on, and it's suggesting to use knitting needles that are 5mm, okay, and you can use circular knitting needles in order to hold up extra. That's completely up to you, or if you can get a total of 56 on your knitting needles, that's completely up to you. It doesn't say to use circular, and because of that you probably could get it onto a regular size knitting needle. So we're just going to insert into the loop, okay, from the go into the back side of the loop, and we just want to do just a regular stitch. So how you hold your yarn, we have slower tutorials available if you're new to knitting. So you throw it up over the back and you bring it forward, okay, and let's try that again. So just up over the back, we throw it forward, and what we have to do is that we just have to rotate it and put this knitted needle that's on the top now just through that loop and collect it. Okay, it's like you're kind of twisting it. So up into there, and we want to just throw on the number of cast-ons that it says to do. So strip number 1 would be 28, strip number 2 would be 56, and etc. And so you're just going to collect them as you cast on, and this can be a very easy process as you're going on this. So just cast on the number of stitches that you would like to do. So once you get the number that you want it to cast on, okay, I'm just going to do a smaller example. It's just a garter stitch. The garter stitch, all that means it's the knit stitch back and forth in each row, and when you do knit stitch back and forth, it's called the garter stitch. Okay, so just coming in from behind, so just insert into the loop so that the needle goes in behind, wrap it, and then just slide it up. Okay, so this is just a garter stitch. So chances are you know how to do a garter stitch at this point, or a knit stitch at this point, in order to do this. So it's just a matter of going through the motion, and this is really kind of a, I want to say it's kind of brainless in that it's really one you don't really have to think about too much. It's just a knit stitch back and forth. So you're just going to go back and forth on just doing this exact same thing, and just let your project just grow before your very eyes. And clearly the bigger the strip, then the more stitches you have, but then the bigger the strip, then the wider it is. So you kind of, it's one versus the other. Once you get to the very end, just turn your work, okay, and just switch your knitting needles, and I start into the back again and again, just kind of up around the back. So just go back and forth to as much as you want to go, and it has that in the instructions on how much solid color that there is versus a stripe. And so what I'm going to do is I'll do a little bit more here off camera, and then I'll show you how to do striping, because that's just really quite easy as well. So now I've just finished off a certain amount. So now I'm going to show you how to do striping. So what we're going to do is that we're going to start off knitting as normal, okay, but instead of using the strand that we had been using, we want to use a new strand. Do not put any knots onto your work. Okay, so just loop it. So when you go to loop it, make sure that the work that is in front, okay, so if you're looking at it from this is your loose end. Make sure it's on the way out and just loop it around the back. Okay, so when you follow this string out through the back is the strand, and then out through the front here is the actual leading to the yarn ball. So you want to then just knit with that strand. Now you're gonna notice that right off the bat it's gonna be really loose, but you can correct that later when you go to fasten everything in with the darning needle. So when you're doing the stripes, you're just gonna use this new color. Notice that I did not fasten off that other color. We're gonna leave it attached there. So when you do the striping on this particular blanket, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna go across with the one color and back, and then once you get back then you'll switch the colors back then to the original. So you're just gonna carry up the yarn on the side of the project all the way up, and because it's knitting you can easily hide that in when you're going to sew the panels together. Just like that. Okay, so when you get all the way to the other side, okay, you're just gonna turn your work. Okay, so you see the straggler still holding on the other side. It's just sitting there waiting for you to come back. It's not going anywhere, and then you just knit your way back. So when you get back then what's gonna happen is that you're gonna switch your yarn back to the other color. But the nice thing about this one, and I did confirm with the designers at Yarn Inspirations, that usually when they do striping in particular projects that the yarn is never fastened off. As they do striping, it's just carried up on the sides of the project, and that's a good little tip to know. So what do you think you need to do when you get to the other side? Well, you just gotta let the yarn just sit there nice and quietly. So the last loop is gonna be a little bit loose, but once you get a darning needle into that you can correct it. Okay, so you can just kind of pull on it now in order to keep it nice and snug. So as you turn your work, you want to let that strand fall. Okay, and you're going to pull up the other yarn that you had been working with before, insert in and use that one. So just don't make sure that there's a lot of tension there, just kind of use it and just coming up and start then with the new yarn. So once you get a certain way in, that looseness on the end goes away, and what I would do is that after a few rows I would go with a darning needle and fasten it, and I'll show you how to do that as well. I might as well do that while I'm here in this process. So you're just gonna knit then with this color back and forth and then switch and do that to make the stripes within this particular project. Now you'll notice that the stripes, as I mentioned in the very beginning, they will be very solid on one side, and the other side they will kind of look like they're offset a bit, and so you do have a good side and a wrong side for these kind of projects. Okay, so you see that the stripe is well together. The other side, see, is not so organized. So then you come back. So it's an easy pattern to remember. So as soon as you get back, you'll run back into that other strand. You'll know to switch it, so you can end up with really cool striping effects on your particular projects, especially with this kind of this kind of blanket. So what I'll do is that I'll just go a few more rows off camera, and then I'll show you how to use a darning needle to sew those loose ends in order to make your work look perfect at the end. So while I'm finishing up going across, so if you all of a sudden want to stop your striping, all you're just gonna do then is just let that other strand that you had been working with, so let's just say this other color that I had been working with, this color is gonna be done, and all I'm just gonna do is leave an extra long tail, just snip it and just leave it out of the way, and I'm gonna come back later then to use a darning needle in order to secure everything in. So you can just go back and forth then just with the regular yarn color that you had been working with, and then just after you get by it, just so that it gets enough on project done, you can come back later and be able to secure all that in, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So as you get further on, you can see that I created the stripe here, and I have both of the stragglers, one that I started with and one that I finished with. So it's obviously more striping involved in the actual pattern, but again the concept is still the same. So using a darning needle, what you want to do is this: you want to take the needle and you want to glide underneath the stitches. Okay, so when I say underneath, you don't see it coming around the back side, but if you are gonna do anything, stay to the back side of the project. So now that I got that in, stay to the back side, because that's not the good side of your project. When you go to do it, make sure that it's not warping, you're not pulling on it in any way to change the elasticity of the knit stitches itself, and just go back and forth 3 times inside. When you go back and forth 3 times, it secures it permanently into position, and you can safely just trim out that work. So if you stay toward the back side, it just will not affect the way that the front side looks. Okay, so then you go and do the next one. So that is how you do it. So if you're changing colors multiples of times and multiples of stripes, obviously the more these strands you have. So stay again towards the back side, just stay and just get in the fibers. Don't let that needle hit the front side of your work, because then you'll see it pop through and it will look abnormal. And just going back and forth 3 times. So in the next part of this tutorial, I'll show you how to cast off if you're not familiar with doing so. It's really quite easy. It's just the knit stitch cast off, and therefore you got everything nice and hidden. So you can see here on the work is that it looks great. So let's do the cast off now, and let's get our knitting needles back in our hands. To do the cast off, you're just gonna knit as normal. So let's knit the first one like it's a regular. So just knit, and now you're gonna knit the second one. So this is when the game changes. So wrap that one here, and you have 2 loops on your hook, or sorry, on your knitting needles. And so take that first loop and pop it up over top of that first one, or that one that you just created. Okay, so just create it and just pop it up and over like so. Okay, so then going into the next one, so knit the next one like this. Okay, and keep it nice and tight onto your knitting needle so it doesn't pop off, and just move it up over top of that other one, just like there. That one's a better one. Okay, so wrap, and you're gonna do that all the way. This is cut like a bind off. Okay, okay, and you're just gonna continue to do it. So make sure that you let the knitting needles get the thickness of the stitch. So don't keep it towards the end. Make sure you do slide it down. Therefore you'll have a nice perfect edge every time you do it. So you're just gonna move along your project, and as you can see that the first part of this project is now being cast off, as you can see it there. So right, neat. So therefore you just keep on going until you're at the very end, and then what you're gonna just do is use a darning needle like I kind of just showed you, and just get that last end woven in, and sew it in, position it, and get it out of your way so that you have a perfect finish each and every time. So this is how you do the Essentials Stripes knit blanket, and you have 5 strips to do, and I think this one is really cool with the right colors and combinations. You'll probably have this blanket for years to come, and it looks really quite fabulous. So I'm working my way all the way to the end. Here's the last one. So you end up with 1 loop on the knitting needle, and all you're just gonna do then is then you just trim your yarn and you feed that strand through that loop to lock it. So just take your time, get it through like so, and then you're just gonna secure everything nicely, and then put that into a darning needle and just weave it in and out of just the edging, and therefore you'll have the perfect kind of look. So this is the Essentials Stripes knit blanket by yarnspirations.com. Have a great day. We'll see you again real soon. Bye bye.